I and all sentient beings, until we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. By the virtues I possess, by giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Good morning. We have a short Dhamma talk today because I want to take us into a meditation this morning. So today I wanted to talk about good friends on the path. You know, everybody's against greed, hatred, and delusion in other people. But we feel justified in our own cravings and our own attachments and our own narrow or self-serving views, our own resentments and our own revenge tactics. We all agree that certain behaviors are outside the bounds of decency or certainly outside the bounds of the holy life, the way we embrace thoughts, words, and actions that represent higher consciousness, compassion, and wisdom. And that's the problem. Because we can see the beam obstructing another person's view, but we can't see the boulder blocking our own. And that's what this practice is all about, deeply looking at one's own thoughts and words and actions in light of the highest compassion or wisdom the moment can hold. And now this sometimes means that we do the right thing and we lose. And sometimes we say the right thing and we're rejected. And we have such an aversion to this kind of loss and shame that we will do almost anything to not have it as part of our lives. And that's a conundrum for sure. So what do? How do we change so that we actually line up with the views that we hold sacred or worthy? First, we have to redefine what we consider pain and what we consider unworthy of one of higher intelligence and virtue. Redefining what we consider pain is what the Buddha calls adopting right view. Because right now, we like what's not good for us and we don't like what is good for us. And it just creates a situation where we don't know whether to go left or right. Because what we have leaned into continually ever since we've been born into this existence is what is beneficial for us, what is pleasurable for us, what satisfies our cravings, what appears to be something that's advantageous to have. And we've been unable to see what comes with it. We've been able to look straight forwardly and see the inherent suffering in all of these things. And so we think that good is bad and bad is good. We think that not having is bad and having is good. We have it sort of like upside down. The thing is that when we turn it right side up and we just see it as it actually is, we don't have to call it good or bad. It just is what it is. And if we don't have a certain attachment to it, it doesn't matter to us which way it is, in the sense of that will bring me happiness or that will make me unhappy. We will find an understanding of how the present moment has come to be. And it can be something that we learn from or something that we repeat again and again, or something that we allow to absolutely throw us until we lose all sense of there being any hope, any answer to life. And these choices are all ours. And so he says that there is a change that has to take place in the way we view things. Not so much in the way things are, but in how we understand the nature of appearances, what is in front of us. And so he says not so much to see things, um, not so much what we see, I'll say it that way, as how we see. It's how we see that provides the opportunity for a deep introspection. It provides an opportunity for becoming a present help. It provides a means of setting up the next moment that it can be different from the present moment. Because the minds that create a situation, can't really, you can't use that same mind, to create something different. It takes a different way of seeing to create something different. So how do we change so that we actually line up with the views that we hold sacred or that we hold worthy? You say, well, first we have to redefine what we consider pain and what we consider unworthy of one of higher intelligence and virtue. We want to look right in the eyes of others. We want to look right. And we want to be on the team as long as the team is winning. And we want all views to line up with ours or what's best for us and those that matter to us. And he said, and this is a fault. It is a root downfall. So it's not so much looking right in the eyes of others. It's actually knowing in your heart of hearts that your intention is noble. So as long as we hold up this idea of wanting to look right and wanting all views to line up with our own, and for those that matter to us, we're going to be a contributor to the current confusion and injustice that exists in the world. Whether we do some big outlandish thing out there or not, we provide the energy, the fuel for all of that to continue. So we've always felt that when things are going bad in an unjust way, that we need to rabble rouse and we need to fight and maybe we do need to bring some attention to things. But it's not just the attention we bring by our presence, it is the energy that we bring to the thing that makes all the difference in the world. So what energy am I bringing to the situation? Because when we want everyone's view to line up with ours because we think it's right, with this view comes an unwillingness to hear or to consider the complaint of others. It enables us to completely invalidate or discount their story. Or we think of them as less worthy or less valuable. It causes us to not see the necessity of being concerned about their plight. And little by little, the small divides become a gulf and become a chasm of human indignity, gross negligence, gross indifference. And with that, the feelings of justification in one's own position and views, and the cyclic instigation of more polarizing, blinding greed, hatred, and ignorance. And right along with that comes the near companions of fear, of sorrow, and hopelessness. And this is a requiem for the state of our country right now, perhaps even for the world, isn't it? The Buddha says that basically there are two ways out of this, or two and polarizing views. One is that we create an insulated pretend existence, wrapping ourselves up tightly in all things mine, enjoying what we have, enjoying who we are, drowning ourselves in entertainments that make us forget the times, or we devolve into state so consumed by anger and fear that we can't hold two thoughts together due to the exhaustion of the energy that it takes to hate. So, Buddhas, awakened beings, offer us a way out. We just use this word. I think it's a good word. It doesn't have to be capitalized, Buddha. It's an epithet. It describes a quality. That's all. We don't have to make it like a holy thing. It just ascribes a quality. The quality of being awake, of being unified in mind, so that one doesn't think more highly of himself than he ought to think, and doesn't think more lowly of others than he should think. So Buddha's awakened beings offer us a way out. They're like guides, living guides offering possibilities for living an authentic life. I just want to be real to me. Whether you get me or not, I live in this body, in this skin. I am well acquainted with this mind. I'm continually abiding with these thoughts. You might think you know me, but you don't know me. Most of us don't even know ourselves. So the Buddhas point us to self-examination. Not with judgment, but just with clear looking and acknowledgement of one's own fluctuating mental states. And it says you can come to know one of a faithful temperament by the kinds of thoughts that are constantly occurring in them. You can know one of a hateful temperament. You can know one of an understanding temperament. You can know one of a delusional temperament. You can know one of a speculative temperament. You can know one of a greedy and grasping and craving and selfish temperament by the kinds of thoughts that are continually arising in the mind, and the words that follow, and the actions or inaction that follow. So by observing others, we can know the state of mind. You don't have to ask the question. You certainly can't answer a question that no one has asked. So if someone has not asked, am I selfish? There's no point in telling them that they are. They didn't ask you the question. But we're constantly looking at others and trying to tell them what's wrong with them. And that's an okay place to be in if someone has asked you to be their guide or their teacher or whatever. Of course, whoever asks you to do that, they're generally not going to listen to what you have to say. So that comes with the package. It's okay, Robert, as long as he's okay. The barking doesn't bother. Okay. So these Buddhas are like guides offering possibilities for how we can live authentically, how we can live with ourselves. And until we learn to live with ourselves, we can't really live with others. So we take that which is virtuous in us, that which is unvirtuous in us, and we acknowledge the whole ball of wax. But it takes more than just acknowledging. Acknowledging is the first part. When we first start to acknowledge, we sort of develop this self-hatred. He says, well, you missed the boat there. This is all about non-hatred. So if I start to like really disgust myself or despise myself, he helps us to correct that. He says, you are not your thoughts. So he teaches us how to put a separation between what we consider ourselves and our thoughts, so that we can look at them. If we didn't do that, it would be hard to look at some of the things it would be hard to face up to some of the things that we think. I mean, It really would. I mean, nobody in this room, including myself, would want to tell everything we think. It would forever change how we view each other. Yet and still, those thoughts do come from time to time. So it says we separate ourselves from the thoughts and we can examine them. And he said we can put them in two categories: right thoughts, wrong thoughts. He said thoughts are only of two kinds. They're useful or not useful, beneficial or not beneficial. That's what I mean by right. I mean useful or beneficial. Good meaning that they do something positive and helpful for oneself, for others, for oneself and others. These three, not any one, but these three: oneself, others, oneself, and others. Start thinking in terms like that, in threes. I find certain themes move throughout all kinds of spiritual disciplines. For instance, in the Bible, it speaks of the cord of three. And it says a three cord is not easily broken. And when I first discovered that about 20 years, it like just jumped right off the page. 20 years ago, it jumped off the page for me. And I said, what does that mean? A three cord is not easily broken. And so I started thinking of like when I had hair, we used to twist our hair. And then to make the twist, like divide it into two pieces and twist. But then to make the twisty stay, we had to braid it at the tip. So you had to take three, make three strands and intertwine them. And they held the twist together. And just seeing that image helped me to understand that thought. And I started putting it into my life, like this power of three. The power of three keeps there from being a standoff. When one has a view and the other has a view, and you've got a standoff. The power of three allows for the waiting of a convincing argument. The power of three allows for there to be like a referee. The power of I started thinking of so many ways that the power of three was instrumental. It added a dimension. It's like moving from two-dimensional space to a three-dimensional space. Now there's some wisdom that has to go into the coming together of the three. I can tell you that, because you have to live with the company that you keep. But I could see how it could be so useful, so helpful. And so he talks about this way, this power of three coming together. Myself, the other, and myself and the other is the power of three. And we should think in these kinds of ways. When we do this, we see that we're not so much different from others as we like to think. And it's only once we get to know ourselves that we can know others, for we are all capable of the same deeds, both beneficial and unbeneficial, both good and not so good. So I can know everybody in this room because I'm every person. The capacity for whatever is within the scope of what a human being can do, that's all in me. Thich Nhat Hanh said it so eloquently one time when he said, I am the victim and the murderer. And recognizing that that full range resides in me. And then embarking upon a path to uproot, to shift from the habitual tendency to lean into a certain way of being, you know. And even if I have to confront it day after day, looking at it not with hatred or aversion, but just looking at it, trying to understand, looking at it, accepting that this is here, not trying to push it away, but allowing the view to gradually dissolve and for a different view to arise in its path. And we do that with the thoughts that we add to the prevailing or predominant view. For instance, if I think that I'm justified in hating someone, then I embrace the saying, hatred is never overcome by hatred. This is a universal law. Because when one hates, he seeks to annihilate, eradicate, uproot the other. And let's say that he's successful in that. Then the one that has been uprooted seeks to get back at the one that uprooted him. And so then it just shifts back over here. And then this one seeks to get back at this one and it shifts back over. And it just never ends. It's an unending cycle. But he said, if you really want to uproot hate, it's only uprooted by non-hatred. Now, if I don't believe that non-hatred has a power to it, now I'm like, psh. So I have to be really convinced that non-hatred has a power, and that that power can neutralize the power of hatred. If I don't believe that, like, no point coming out the gate. If I do embrace that as plausible, then I'm going to have to go against my habitual tendency. I have to go against my self-preserving, my self-preserving nature to walk in that. And that's going to be uncomfortable. And actually, when I do walk in it, it means that I might not come out on the winning end. And that might seem defeatist to me. So we have to really come to some internal agreement about what we embrace and what we hold as true. If we don't, we're like just hypocrites. I mean, you can be a hypocrite, be a good one. I always decided, when I was good, I was real good. When I was bad, I was real bad. I was like, if I'm gonna, if I'm gonna go, I'm gonna go whole hog. I'm gonna go all the way. So whenever I started, I was in Pentecostal church, long black dresses, black hat, everything was, except for in that moment we went praise and worship, and that's why we just go manic, tear up the furniture and everything. And then we came down from that, everything was like this, And so like our way of turning away from the world, and so whenever I decided, I just had enough of this trying to be goody two-shoes that I just couldn't take anymore, I need to check out for a minute. I checked all the way out. I didn't be bad on Sunday, on Saturday, and tip in the church looking holy on Sunday. I just left for a while. I said, I'll see you all in a few months. And I just go out and do whatever I want to do. And then when I was tired of that, I would come back and I'd try again. Now, I'm not saying that's a good way. I'm just saying that was the way I did it. If I was going to, if I was going to have a Sunday sermon on me, because it seemed like every time I went to church, the sermon was about me. Like somebody must be peeping in my window. Every sermon was about me. I got tired of hearing it all the time. So I check out for a while. Actually, it wasn't about me, but I took it that way because uh, there was a part of me that wanted to be different. And I just couldn't seem to find the tools. I had the ideal, but I couldn't seem to find the tools. So I'm so thankful to have found the Dharma because it gives me the tools. But I do have to pick them up. I do have to use them. I do have to hold fast. So there's the first part of the triple gem, the Buddhas, the awakened beings, who are like guides offering possibilities for living authentically. And they point us to this self-examination without judgment, but just clear looking and acknowledgement of one's own state of heart, state of mind. And the first thing that we notice is that we're not so much different from other people as we like to think. And we also recognize our commonalities. Once we know ourselves, we can know others because we're all capable of the same deeds. Then these Buddhas help us devise a plan to get from where we see ourselves to where we want to go. So the plan is like a path, like the Noble Eightfold Path. It's like a road map, or today we might call it like a GPS. But here's the problem with just following a map or the GPS. The GPS speaks to us, right? But it can't interact with us. It can say go here, it can say go there, but it can't actually acquaint us with the terrain or give us the in-the-moment supports that we might need. So yes, we need a GPS, but we also need good friends on the path. And to have good friends on the path, one must himself be a good friend. And so when Ananda and the Buddha were walking through one of the communities, and Ananda said, you know, Blessed One, good spiritual friends are half of the holy life. He said, oh, don't say that, Ananda. Good friends in the Dhamma are not half of the holy life. They are the whole of the holy life. So if you look at it, he prized good friends even above the stature of the awakened ones and the Dhamma, because it's only with the good friends that we have the support and the feedback that we need to walk this path authentically. Now, on the first level of training, he talks about the qualities of a good friend. So he teaches us what it is to be a good friend and how to recognize a good friend. And sometimes our life stories have pointed in a different direction. And we're a little bit confused or mixed up on exactly how good friends act. We may have an adolescent idea of what good friends are because all of us, grew up with friends or were the kind of friend that sometimes I'm your friend and sometimes I'm not. Sometimes it just depends on how beneficial it is to me, or sometimes we did things that we were absolutely ashamed of and hoped our good friend never found out. And we did it maybe out of jealousy or we did it out of envy because it seemed like you suddenly liked her more than you liked me. And so I'm feeling misplaced or displaced. And so I might say something or do something to try to destroy your friendship. Yeah, I want you to be happy, but I don't want you to be that happy. So happy that she replaces me. These kinds of ways that we in the past have evaluated how to keep everything the way we want it. And so to make it clear to us, he establishes what a good friend is. And then we have to ask ourselves, am I that kind of friend? And we have to constantly ask ourselves, am I that kind of friend? Of course, we know we're that kind of friend when we're acting our best. But what about when we're thinking our worst? Am I still that kind of friend? So friends don't go ask other friends about this friend if there's a question. Friends go to the friend that they have a question about, and they have a conversation. It's just little things like that. And we don't even realize that maybe we're running afoul of the friendship guideline because this is the way we've always done things. And maybe we have not even seen the harm or the danger in it. And so he said, first you have to learn the qualities of a good friend. And then you have to examine yourself, shore yourself up. You yourself become a good friend. And either remain a good friend or walk alone. Don't be a hypocrite. So he says there are 4 kinds of good friends. The helper, the one who endures in good times and bad, the one who is a mentor, and the one who is a compassionate friend. And he said the helper protects. The helper is a refuge when you're afraid. The helper steps in tasks and provides double what you ask them to do. It said, and he looks out for your welfare. An enduring friend does not abandon you in times of misfortune. Like we have Fairweather friends, An enduring friend guards your secrets closely. He doesn't say you can trust me and then go tell somebody else. When you're grappling with something, when you're trying to figure out what is the right thing to do or what's the right recourse or how to repair some damage, he doesn't listen with sympathy and then run off and tell somebody. He doesn't jump the gun and tell your secret before you can tell it. I mean, it's okay if you do these things, just don't call yourself their friend. That's what I'm saying. Don't be confused about what friendship is. And if you don't find someone worthy to be your friend, just don't walk with them. He says, so he shares your secrets. He guards your secrets closely, and they share their own. Somebody's always talking with you, getting information out of you. You walk away from there, and they've just pinned you and got all stuff, and they never tell anything about themselves. So you never, they know how to guard and protect themselves. Sometimes something is just too much information. Sometimes things are told in such a way that it makes one think, just start fabricating scenarios in their mind. I didn't say it. I just dropped enough to make you wonder about something. Because if I can just drop that much into your consciousness, you can come up with all kinds of questions and ideas and scenarios about what's what yourself, because that's human nature. That's how we are. We can never let something come here without us following it. He said, let it come here, you can see it, and let it keep on going. That's what the development of concentration is about. It's about things being able to come into your view. You can decide they have something to do with me or they have nothing to do with me, and you can let them move on. But if we are not developed in concentration, everything that comes, we grasp around, we grab hold to, and we get all involved in it. And we find ourselves unhappy, we find ourselves sad, we find ourselves fearful, and it didn't even have anything to do with us. Just our conceptualizing mind, and we just put ourselves in the middle of that. And so he says, developing concentration will help us in our continual grasping around things and constantly thinking and thinking about things until we make ourselves unhappy, and then we say, oh, they made me unhappy, or this place made me unhappy. But it's all about what's rolling around in your own mind. And then being unwilling to take the responsibility for our own minds. We have to take responsibility for our own thoughts. We really do. We have to be willing. You know, it's easy. It's just as easy to think the best of a person as it is to think the worst. But we have a propensity towards thinking the worst. A propensity, a habitual tendency towards thinking the worst. He said, so whenever that tendency just starts to lean you that way, here's where the practice comes in. Lean yourself upright and go in the other direction. I'm sure there's a good reason for what he did. It can be as easy as that. And the mind moves back into a place of equilibrium and peace until there's a need for you to be involved. It's just as easy to think the best of someone as it is to think the worst. Sometimes it's so deeply ingrained that we don't even realize that we're thinking in that way. Because when we're actually thinking, it's in our conscious mind, not in the subconscious, but when we're actually thinking, we don't think that way. But because it's so deeply ingrained in our psyche by our environment, where we live, the things we've heard our parents say and their friends, the things that our society says, the things that we pick up off of the moving picture screen, the things that we get from television, the images, the innuendos, the thoughts, and they go down deep. They drop below our critical thinking mind, down deep into the soil of our psyche. And they're just down there ruminating, and then something happens, and see, I knew those people couldn't be trusted. It just popped right up. Now, when you know yourself, you know that sometimes you think that way because of your life experience. There are some ways that immediately, believe me, that immediately pop up for me. They're not based on nothing. They're actually based on something. And sometimes it conditions, if we can use it wisely, but without disdain, we can use it in a beneficial way. This property is on the historic tour. So once a month, I think, or at least during a certain two of the seasons of the year, they have a tour bus that goes around, and they stop in front and they talk about this property. So the last time the bus came around, someone happened to have been on the bus who came to visit Hartwood and told us what they said. And they said this used to be a wonderful, place for, and they talked about it, said, but now those Buddhists on, it's no telling what's going on in there now. You know, and that was it. So do you think I want to go around all through town telling everybody who we are and what we're doing? Because do you think they really care? Do you think, you know? And it's, oh, Pani, why do you need to advertise more? Pani, why do you need to do this? Pani, why do you need to go on the news? Pani, why do you need, you know? So, no, it's not the right action. But I don't have to say, oh, no, because this is how they really feel. There's no point in planting that. But you just know something. You know, now, I mean, what does that have to do with me? It doesn't really have a lot to do with me, that view. You know, I just keep doing what I'm doing. And I can't do everything. I can't do it all. I can just do the good I know to do. That's it. That's sufficient. And so this is a way of living non-aggressively in the world. We don't have to fight everything like this. But there's a different way that we can stand against evil, and it's simply by doing good. And by not allowing one's own mind to become embittered or embattled by the war and the fear that's going on in somebody else's mind. And I'll tell you what else it does. It doesn't set you up for having a lot of fear. When I'm traveling around the country, you know, people up and they say, Pani, why, but why there? I'm like, why not? You think anything is better in Oakland? No, it's not. And so they said, well, is it safe to come to North Carolina? As safe as it is to walk around L.A. How safe is that? You know, for some groups of people, it is not at all. I mean, and you know it. That's why you're so angry over here. All of these allies. You know. And so we can always look and find reasons to accuse and to stack up weapons against. And, you know, but it doesn't inure to any good benefit. Not now, and not in the future. You won't enjoy your present moment, and your present moment sets up the future moment. So there'll be no enjoyment in the future. And so you see, this is not so much about changing the outside as it is transforming on the inside. And when we start to transform on the inside, it's very empowering. There's a steadiness that comes. You know, there is an expectation for no expectations. You know, it's like understanding the world that we live in, and understanding the childishness, and understanding, you know, the inferior mind. If I have recognized the inferiority in my own mind, and if I am working my way out of it. And so he tells us to be kind with ourselves, to be gentle with ourselves. Now, being kind with ourselves means to uproot it, absolutely. To be gentle with ourselves is to do it with compassion. Do it with compassion, but do it we must. And when we have done that, then that comes along with that a power to transform others, but without doing. There is like no doer. You know, so one does without doing, yet nothing goes undone. We give up our plans. You know how we have to plan everything out, you know, and be scrupulous in our planning, and, you know, but you stop living that way, and you start taking every day as it comes and allowing the steadiness of one's own mind and heart to be the power that enables you to meet whatever comes. in the course of a day. So I don't go to bed worrying about tomorrow. And I don't wake up fretting over yesterday. And he said, this is the path to true freedom. He said the mentor friend is one who restrains you from wrongdoing, who guides you towards good actions, who tells you what you ought to know, and who shows you the path to heaven. He shows you the path to heaven. And he said that there can be a pleasant abiding here and now. And the compassionate friend is one who does not rejoice in your misfortune. They're not the talebearers. They delight in your good fortune. I mean, really delight. They prevent others from speaking ill of you, either through stopping the conversation, turning from it, saying, friend, hold that. Instead of having itching ears. They try to give you a different way of thinking about something if they have listened. They try to be a peacemaker. They encourage others who praise your good qualities. He said, these 4 friends are indeed hard to find. So if one is so desperate to have a friend, they'll take anybody and anything. But he says, hold out for the good friend. And then attend to them like a mother would her only child. So we need good friends on the path because it is the whole of spiritual life. And we need to learn how to be good friends on the path. And this will bring us a certain kind of enjoyment and contentment that is worthy of all your efforts to live a spiritual life. Yes.
Pannavati, when you spoke of the tour bus and the guide saying, well, this is what once was here, but now they're just a Buddhist, da-da-da-da-da-da, I wonder if an opportunity is being lost to reduce ignorance within our community and beyond. What if instead it became a 5-10 minute stop on that tour bus and let the people come in and see who it is, who we are and what we do without the slightest hint of proselytization, of course? And would that not reduce ignorance?
So I thank you for that question, and I think it's a good idea. So everything is about timing. If you know that there's a lot of people who don't want to see this come into being, then don't invite them in before it's time. So we just got, 2 days before our last retreat, we just got our full occupancy permit. So I definitely did not want anybody coming in anytime before we got everything we needed to fully operate. We would get partials. They say, okay, you can use this building, you can use this building, you can use this building. But until you get the final for the whole thing, there's always the opportunity for something to go wrong. And if you don't get the final for the whole thing, then then you're not going to be in a good position. And so, yes, the newspaper has called us several times. Yes, the television station has called us, and there will be the time that we will do this. But what time would that be? Would it be when we're just trying to figure out? If you look at our size, you can see that half of the people who started with us, who've been in our Sangha, are no longer here. We're getting a whole new Sangha because some people didn't feel like we needed to do this either. Some people didn't want to contribute, even though they don't contribute that much anyway. They felt like they were putting in money to help other people. And I can tell you that of all of this, and it's well over $1 million, right? But the offerings that we got from our actual Sangha came to under $6,000. It cost $40,000 to just renovate this one building for the Sangha to be in. But yet people felt that they owned it, and they felt that they didn't want anybody to use it. They didn't want to be displaced. They didn't, just small, narrow thinking. So how can we be the light when our light is so dim? We need to get ourselves together in here. We need to decide what we're really about. We need to put our efforts behind whatever we decide we are about. And then we have something to show and to offer the world. I think we're in a good pattern right now. I think we are getting clearer. I think we are developing. I think we're showing our best side, and there's been some shakeup. Yes, there has. There always is when there is change. There's always. Some people would tell me, I don't feel safe. Things were going on in the world at the same time things were going on in here. All of a sudden, we went from a mildly crazy country to a really crazy country. From a mildly on the surface polarized. Some of us know how deeply polarized, but a lot of people don't. Say 70% of the country didn't really realize how polarized we were until certain things started to happen. That all happened right at the time that we're doing this. Some people in my own Sangha came to me and said, I no longer feel safe with you. Why? Because they don't feel safe about things happening, racially out there in the world. But what did that have to do with me? It is, that's why I'm talking about things that go deep, tendencies and views that are deeply, deeply, deeply entrenched. And if we're not really looking, we're not careful, we won't even see them. But I love how we are growing and developing. I don't despise small beginnings. I don't despise starting over. I don't, and we just keep going forward. I would love for the time when we can have the bus stop and invite people in. Some things I haven't done because this is a big place, and I don't even have the funds yet to put all the security in place that needs to be in place to protect us from people who would seek to harm us. So there's some things that have to be there, but that day will come, Dawn. That day will come when because I saw it before we started this. I saw it. But it's our job to bring it into manifestation. And we have the time to do that. I say just keep doing what you're doing. Keep working. If we just keep working on ourselves, we'll come forth as pure gold. And gold flashes in everybody's eye. Yeah.
So I think every day is a good day. I mean, just what you were just saying is the opportunity to re-rise as a phoenix. I think that's just, you said that and the image of the phoenix came to mind. But the other thing that came to clarity as you were speaking is, I think one of the trenches in which we all kind of mentally at times or maybe pervasively can go is that in order to be one of those 4 types of friends for others, I don't know how many of us are truly that 4 type of friend to ourselves. That level of introspection. Are we compassionate with ourselves? Are you going to stand by yourself? Are you going to do the four types of walking as a good friend towards yourself? And I think often until you're able to do that, you're not able to present your universe that way towards others either. And sometimes it's easier to do that for others than it is to yourself or
Yeah.
for yourself.
It is. It is. And that's why he says that our practice, if we devoted first our practice to ourselves, you know, and then we can, he says, one in a hole cannot pull another out of the hole. He said, get out of the hole yourself and then reach down and pull someone out. Now, so he doesn't say get out of the hole and then traipse on off and forget about everybody else. You know, so sometimes we have that idea when we misunderstand what renunciation is. You know, and that's another whole teaching. But it equips us. If we look at you know, these wise ones, they teach by precept and example. Precept and example. So they got out of the hole and they reached back and they help others. And they suffered as a result of it. You know, so if we don't think that there's going to be suffering, you know, it's it has like a bad connotation, but it's really not. That's one of those upside down views. Suffering for the sake of others. To me, there's nothing more satisfying than to make oneself a sacrifice for others. It's something so absolutely satisfying and wholesome, but you have to understand it correctly, you know. And there's a stage when we start to understand that. But the first stage is really applying compassion to ourselves. When I first started working with metta, loving kindness, I didn't have any for myself. Mostly my life consisted of trying to please other people. That was it. You know, and you know you can't please everybody all the time. You can hardly please anybody part of the time. So my life was very unhappy. And I couldn't find any compassion for myself. I should have been smarter. I was very smart, but I should have been smarter. Should have been better. Should have been, you know, it was always what it should have been. And so my teacher, Bhante Vimala Ramsey, he said, you're not ready for loving kindness. He said, I want you to start with forgiveness. You just start writing, I forgive myself for. And he said, whatever comes up, just write that. I forgive myself for being black. I forgive myself for having nappy hair. I forgive myself for having a big stomach, even though I'm skinny. I forgive myself for having big feet. I forgive myself for being poor. I forgive myself for, and you know, and I went down the road, all the things that others said about me, all the things I internalized and said about myself, all the things my family said about me, all the bad things I thought about others, all the things, and I just started forgiving myself for all of that was in my head. And bit by bit, for 30 days, that was my meditation. I wasn't sitting trying to go into deep concentration, trying to get into the jhanas. I wasn't noting things as they arose and just watching them come about. I was forgiving myself. And I did an intense 30-day practice. And when I came out of that, I had a taste of loving kindness, what it felt like to be kind to myself. I remembered one incident when I was 3 years old, and my daddy had given me some coins. He would always, like, he had a stopwatch with a chain, and he have coins in his pocket. And he put his hand in his pocket, and he'd jingle his change. And I'd do like this, and he'd take a few coins out and put them in my hand. So I was trying to put coins in my pocket like he did. Of course, I had on one of these little thingies that little children wear, a little halter and the little panties, and they didn't have pockets. And I put my pockets in the waistband, and they fell out the bottom. And I remember that, and I like giggled. But you know, just that one little nonsensical incident, and it was the only thing that would arise every single time I thought about compassion, or like not compassion, thought about a feeling of being loved. And that was the one like it just played over and over and over for me. So I just stuck with that. And I let the feeling of that moment that went back 30 some years, just that brief exchange, and I remembered what that felt like. And I held that feeling. And then I let the storyline fade away, but I just held that feeling. Because, loving kindness, I mean, how you know it is through the feeling that it evokes. And I just held that feeling until I remembered where that feeling could be found in me. And then I just kept bringing it up, kept bringing it up. Forget the storyline, just kept bringing up the feeling. Now I can bring that feeling up at any time. It needs no storyline. It is a quality of being to love being kind. And you can just bring it up. That's why I said breathing in, breathing out. We train in joy. We can train ourselves to bring that up because it always resides in us. So yes, start with oneself. Don't beat oneself over the head when we see those parts of us that we want to uproot. Just look at them clearly. So, Pannavati, you need to work on that. Okay, so let's see what the scripture says. What's the antidote for that? And try the antidote. He tells us, he gives us actually 5 different ways to work with something. We can work with those 5 different ways all by ourselves. And then if we still haven't gotten success after some time, then we can go and seek out the support and the advice of a good friend. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Anyone else? Okay, I'll see you all on Wednesday, yeah? Have a good week.